Hi, Mike. How are you?
Fine, and yourself?
Doing good. Did you have a good last few weeks?
Yes. So the highlight of the last few weeks was going to Texas for the total eclipse, and
Oh,
I also did a trip after that to Horseshoe Bend in Arizona.
oh,
So
wow.
I had some good adventures since the last live stream.
I hope you have some pictures to share with us.
I do. Um,
You ready? Here you go.
okay, so I took along a telephoto lens, and these are pictures taken with that camera as opposed to my iPhone. So I viewed the eclipse from the campus of Baylor University in Waco, and it conveniently fell on the same day as what they call Day of the Bear or Dia del Oso, and which is like like a celebration for the college and the students. So they had all these inflatable slides and obstacle courses and moon bounces and things like that. And there was a big stage down the grass, but I wanted to be as far away from that as possible because I wanted quiet. And okay, so
Ooh.
all these pictures were taken with a solar filter. And one thing I forgot was I don't know what they're called, but it's like a remote clicker. So when you want to take a picture, you don't press the camera itself, but kind of like a remote control, like the clicky things they use on Jeopardy. So consequently, my pictures are a little bit blurry, but this is the sun before it started. And you can see in this picture, it looks kind of cloudy, and it was cloudy. And these pictures were taken during the good times. You know, much of the time you couldn't see the sun at all. So everyone was hoping, and I'm sure many people were praying that the clouds would clear before totality. And again, this just kind of illustrates that even when you didn't think there were clouds, there were still clouds, that you could see just drifting past the sun. Okay, so here's the eclipses starting. You can kind of see a bite taken out on the right side. And, I just took a
Hmm.
picture from time to time. And again, you can still kind of see the clouds. And like, here's an example when it was like extremely, like there was directly a cloud in front. So these here are probably about like 10 minutes from totality. And then you start getting just this little crescent, and now it's just like a little sliver. And then finally the last bit of the sun goes behind the moon. And then I could safely take off the solar filter. And this is what it looked like, at least through my camera. And you can see some solar prominences, especially at about like the 5:30 position, as well as some like in the 9 o'clock position. And I'm really mad at myself at how blurry these are, but nevertheless, they're better than the pictures I took the previous two total eclipses. That one is pretty good. And yeah, this one is pretty good. This one might be the best one. And
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, thank you. So we had about 4.5 minutes of this. Um,
That's so exciting. You can even see like the little pink what do they call that? That little
yeah, I think you're referring to the solar prominences, which are,
okay.
it's kind of like a magnetic field jumping from one part of the sun to another. And these fields are bigger than the whole Earth. And I think that it just tends to attract a lot of the photons and other particles, which is why it kind of stands out.
Hmm.
And they're so big that they extend past the moon. So here the moon is, shall we say, the sun is starting to breach the other side. And at this point, I had to put the solar filter back on. And so this is what it looked like again with the solar filter back on, is the moon was going on its merry way. So there you go.
That
Those,
is so
yeah,
exciting.
thank you. So Heather, I hope you're going to see the one in 2045 since you missed this one.
I hope so. Fingers crossed.
I'm going to nag
And
you about it.
I'm looking forward to it. Dieter Green said it's a shutter release, the little
Thank
clicker
you.
thing.
Yeah, a shutter release. Yeah. Yep. So those are the pictures. I have a bunch more with my Apple I took with my regular phone. Um, more of like just like the people and just like the grounds of everything. But I don't want to show you those because they show my friends, and out of respect of their privacy, I'm not going to show them on the show.
That makes sense. Did you it looks like a whole community event where they had a bunch of different things that you could do. Did you do anything fun, or were you just focused on taking pictures?
I did some fun stuff because from the time the eclipse starts to it ends is about 2.5 hours. So I did a race with one of my friends on one of the inflatable obstacle courses, and they told me we weren't really supposed to because we weren't Baylor students. But since we stood in line, they let us do it once, and I won. By the way, we had a bet of a beer on it.
Woo! That's fun.
Yes, but more
Tho-
importantly are the bragging rights.
Well, those obstacle courses with the balloon houses, the blow up houses, they're hard. Like it actually takes like some stamina and some work to get through that.
It was easy. All right, enough about that.
That's fun. And then you said you did something after that?
So yeah, I went to Horseshoe Bend, Arizona, and let's see if I can bring up a picture of that. I don't think I quickly can, but Horseshoe Bend is a section of the Colorado River north of the Grand Canyon and south of Lake Powell, where it makes a horseshoe shape. And if you saw a picture of it, you'd see, oh yeah, I've seen images of that before. But it's just like this famous stretch of the Colorado River in Arizona. So I kayaked 15 miles of that.
Ooh. Oh my goodness,
And
15
my
miles.
newsletter, not the next newsletter, the newsletter for today was about Dallas. The previous newsletter was about the eclipse. The next newsletter is going to be about Passover, and we're going to have Passover trivia today. But
Ooh.
the newsletter for May 2nd will be about Horseshoe Bend.
So if people are interested in seeing your newsletter, how would they subscribe to that?
You go to wizardofodds.com and like scroll to the bottom, and there is a box that says subscribe to our newsletter.
Okay, sounds good. And you've been to the my mind just went blank. You've been there several times, the Grand Canyon, right?
I've been to the Grand Canyon many times, including going there on our way back from Horseshoe Bend. But Horseshoe Bend is not part of the Grand Canyon, it is just north of it. If you were to do a rafting trip on the Grand Canyon or Horseshoe Bend, you would start at the same place called Lee's Ferry. If you go west, you enter the Grand Canyon. If you go east, then you get to Horseshoe Bend.
Okay, what did you think about it the first time being there and all that? What was your opinion?
Yeah, it's great. It's kind of like a mini Grand Canyon. It's not as deep as the Grand Canyon itself, but it's still the same kind of rock and the same river. And
Okay.
Horseshoe Bend looks really impressive when you're looking down on it from um, like the trail at the top, which is an easy trail from near Page, Arizona. But when you're actually kayaking it, you can't really tell you're in the bend, except for you can see the people looking at the bend from up at the top. So
Oh,
anyway,
okay.
I'm sure, maybe Yeah, I would need to filter those pictures for the show, and so yeah. If you
That
want to
makes
know more
sense.
about that, hold out for my May 2nd newsletter.
Oh, that's fun. Should we get started?
Yes.
Okay. If you guys have any questions that you want to ask Mike, please go ahead and put it in the chat and we will get to it in the order that it is received. While we are waiting for you guys to do that, we have trivia. So, what is our Passover trivia for today?
Okay. Well, I have 15 questions, and let's get right to it. Let's start with an easy one. Which book of the Bible tells the story of Passover?
So, if you guys know that, put that in the chat. And while we are waiting, we are going to answer some questions from you. Our first question is from Jean, who says, today is International Day for Monuments and Sites. What are some of both of your favorite monuments and sites that you guys have visited?
I did not know that. I'm not sure what they mean by a site, but monuments and sites. Do you have any off the top of your head, Heather?
What is the Needle in Washington, D.C., where you like
Talking about the
go up?
Washington Monument.
Yeah, the Washington Monument. We actually went into the elevator and went to the very top, and then it has like a window, and you could look out in all four directions. I think that was the most. I think that was the experience that was impressioned in my mind the most.
I did that too a long time ago. I was fortunate to go right in. Usually there is a super long line for that. Personally, I think the Washington Monument is kind of boring and overrated. I much prefer the St. Louis Arch, so I'm going to go with that as my favorite monument.
Were you able to go up into it, or was it just something? Oh, you
No,
were?
they basically have these cans that kind of roll up a track to the top. It's kind of like a can within a can, so you never go upside down. But yeah, I love the arch because of a mathematical standpoint. It follows what's called a catenary or a hyperbolic parabola. It takes the form of the curve y equals e to the x plus e to the minus x times some constant. And what's interesting about it is the vertical pressure is the same at all points, making it very stable. It's also the same kind of arch that they might use to support a bridge.
Okay. Do you think it was difficult to build, and were there any windows in the top of it?
There are. So yeah, when you get to the top, you can look down. And I'm sure it was a challenging project to build, but we, I love challenges. I think that this country loves a good challenge. So yeah. And I have seen smaller versions of it at science museums, and the way they set it up is actually kind of interesting. Is you lay it on the floor in this special thing, and then you lift up like the holder for it so that it's vertical, and then you kind of take the holder away. And I've always wanted to build a small version of a catenary, but just never gotten around to it.
Like in your backyard type of a thing?
Yep.
That'd be awesome.
All right.
Oh, I hope you do that one day and like have pictures.
Thanks.
If you guys get a chance, go ahead and put what your favorite monuments or sites are in the chat. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about that. Our next question comes from Rodney, who says, early humans were frightened of eclipse. We know better now. What's a modern day fear that future generations might be amused of once science progresses further?
No one's ever asked me that before. Still, some people are afraid of eclipses to this day. There's a superstition that if you're pregnant and there's an eclipse and you're outside, that it will not be good for your pregnancy. Of course, that's just a myth. Um, hmm. Future. I think there's still all kinds of superstitions out there. for example, Friday the 13th, things like that. I hope that future generations have more of a respect for science than we do today. And I hope that if somebody says something like, people act weird at a full moon or there's more crime, that people will say, oh, really? Let's see some statistics to prove that, as opposed to just taking it blindly like we do today.
I agree with you. So, should we see if anyone has the answer to the trivia question?
Yes,
Was it Exodus?
it was indeed the book of Exodus because they exited Egypt. So let's go on to the next question. When God appeared to Moses to tell him to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, how did he appear to Moses?
Okay, so if you guys know the answer to that, put that in the chat. And again, if you guys have any questions for Mike, please put in the chat as well. So that way we can answer them, of course, in the order that they were received. Next up is from Northern Jim, who says, following your guidance for Shockwave bonus poker, N1, thank you. Sadly, I entered the Shockwave with a quadruple queens and one with quadruple aces. Would have paid more the other way around. Should that impact the strategy?
Okay. So Shockwave, for those of you who don't know, is a video poker variant where you get paid a high amount if you have 4 consecutive aces. Like, so for some reels, 1 to 4 or 2 to 5. So yes, the strategy does depend if you have a lot of aces, in particular 3 of them, whether they're consecutive or not. And I don't think that this strategy is even on my site because it's kind of complicated and you hardly ever see Shockwave anymore. So yeah, there are some obscure situations where there are exceptions according to where the aces are. And that is about the best I can do with that one.
Okay. Our next question comes from Nick, who says, is the Baccarat game platform on your website use a random number generator or a real deck which would simulate a real game?
So it uses an 8-deck shoe and it randomly shuffles the cards. And yeah, so the odds are the same as in a natural game of 8 decks. So, of course, there's going to be a random number generator involved because it's on a computer and, you need to shuffle the cards somehow randomly. So, yeah, that is my answer to that one.
Okay. Let us get to the answer of the trivia question. And Northern Jim says, was it a burning bush?
Yes, it was indeed a burning bush. So let's go on to the
Good
next
job.
one. How shall I put this? What was the 10th plague?
There were 10 plagues.
Yep. And I'm not going to ask anyone to name all 10, just the last plague, which features prominently in the story of Passover.
If you guys know the answer to that, put that in the chat. And again, if you have any questions for Mike, please put that in the chat as well. So that way we could go over them. I got a question for you, Mike.
Okay.
How would an amateur gambler turn pro? Like, what are some things that they have to focus on in order to become a pro or have that pro status?
Well, one could talk about that all day. You have to have some form of advantage play. And even with that, there's usually an intermediary period where you're a professional gambler part-time, which is definitely what I would recommend. And there's a whole host of advantage plays out there. They generally take a very large bankroll. So I would recommend phasing in from being a non-gambler to a professional gambler as you build up your bankroll and being careful not to overbet it. But, what exactly is the advantage play? You have to decide that for yourself.
And that's something that you have to, like, research and determine whether that's an advantage play or not, or do you just go online and Google it?
Well, the latest version of my book has some advantage plays in slot machines, and that is a hot area in advantage play right now. However, that play is starting to cool down due to a lot of competition. Um, I could spend the whole rest of the show talking about various advantage plays, but I think a good advantage player doesn't know just one, but knows lots of them, and will seize whatever opportunity that is available.
And how can someone, get your book?
You can go order it at Amazon.
Okay, and it's, Gambling 102, 2nd edition?
Third edition.
3rd edition.
Yep.
Okay,
One.
awesome. Okay, so we have some answers to your trivia question.
Okay.
Was was it locusts?
Nope.
Okay. Was it firstborn sons?
Yes. So to be specific, the plague was the death of the firstborn male of every family, including animals. So, however, um, God wanted there to be an exception for the Israelites. So when the angel of death passed over to inflict this plague, how was this angel supposed to know which houses had Israelites so as the angel of death would not bother them?
Okay.
So you guys think about that. And there's a question from the forum. And that question concerns what is the next eclipse that I'm going to see? And in my newsletter from last week, I discussed this, but let me pull that up for myself. And there is going to be a total eclipse on August 2nd, 2027. And that is going to go through Gibraltar, the northern tip of Morocco. It's going to go right through Egypt, including the city of Luxor. And it's also going to go over parts of the southern Mediterranean Sea. So I think that's going to be, for people in North America, if you want to see one soon, that's probably going to be your best option. And I would probably see it in either Egypt, or I'm thinking about maybe getting a cruise ship. And whenever there's a total eclipse that goes over water, a lot of the cruise lines will have special cruises to view those eclipses, where they will get right in the totality line for you. And the next good one in the United States will be on August 12th, 2045. That one will go through Northern California, Northern Nevada, Northern Utah, Central Colorado, parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. Again, August 12th, 2025. Now, some people say, Wiz, what about the one on August 22nd, 2044? That's not going to be a very good one. It's only going to be visible in North Dakota and Montana, and only at sunset, when it's not going to
Ooh.
appear as impressive. So the one to put on your calendars, again, August 12th, 2045. I'm going to be watching it from somewhere like Wendover, and hope to see you guys there. I will be 80, so maybe we'll have a little belated birthday party.
Oh, fun. And that cruise ship sounded like a lot of fun too. Have you ever done a cruise ship where, those same cruise ships? So if you like a particular TV show, they
Mhm.
do a cruise ship with all of the stars and everything. Have you ever done anything like that?
No, I've never done a themed cruise. I don't rule it out. But what can I say? I just haven't.
Okay. And then they also had they had plane rides where the plane was going to track the total eclipse, but I don't understand why people would do that because the eclipse would be overhead and then you look out the windows and you couldn't really see it. But I guess people were doing that for the total eclipse as well.
No, you can do that, and you can only see it out of one side of the plane. And
Oh,
the pilot positions himself exactly so at least half the plane can get a good view, and the passengers take turns to get the window seat. And but the benefit of doing that is the plane can basically chase the eclipse, and the eclipse can last like I don't know, like 2 hours long, according to the speed of the plane. The faster the plane, the longer it can last. And my father did
wow.
that once, and he was very happy with it.
Oh, that's so cool. When did he do that?
That was probably I think there was an eclipse in 1980 that only cut through Washington State. Um, Most of that one was over water. So yeah, I'm sure he did that one to just enjoy the eclipse longer.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, he was very
Okay.
excited for it. I was still in high school at the time, but he took very good pictures of it too, especially given cameras at the time were a little more complicated.
That's awesome. Are you ready for the answer to the trivia?
Yes,
Okay. Was it lamb's blood?
exactly. Yes, you were supposed to
Ooh.
put lamb's blood on the door. Now, I tested these questions out on a Jewish friend before the show, and he said the lamb's blood was supposed to be in the form of an X. That I did not know, and he was not positive that was true. If anyone in the peanut gallery can comment on that, I'd be interested.
Dal
Um,
Brickson says it was a red cross in front of the door.
okay, cross X. Okay, that's good to know. I will um, edit my question when I put this in the next newsletter. But let's go on to the next question. Um, at the original Passover dinner or Seder, not how we do it now, what were the three things that they ate?
Okay, so if you guys know the answer to that, put that in the chat. And our next gambling question comes from Northern Jim, who says, sorry to be a pest. Shockwave mode is triggered by winning four of a kind and gives 10 spins to win a higher bonus on this second four of a kind. And it is well explained on your site. I'm not sure what the question is, but I'm glad it's well explained on your site. You have
Okay.
everything on your website.
Well, thank you. I apologize if my previous answer about Shockwave was wrong. I haven't seen that game in like at least 10 years. Um, Wait, I think I was confusing it with Ace's bonus poker. Everything that
Mhm.
I said previous in the show was about Ace's bonus poker. Um, yeah, I don't even remember what the humdinger to Shockwave was. So thank you for that explanation, Northern Jim.
Our next question comes from a monster who says, I know you don't like side bets, but do you happen to know which ones have the lowest house advantage?
Hmm. Um, off the top of my head, I frankly don't. I know there's an insurance side bet in the game called, I don't even want to say the French term, but 30 and 40 that has a player advantage. But you have to place the base bet to make this side bet. But yeah, off the top of my head, I just don't remember. I do know that the pair plus, when it goes 1, 4, 6, 30, 40, has a house advantage of 2.3%, which is quite low for a side bet. But you just don't see that pay table anymore. It got depressed to 1, 3, 6, 30, 40, which bumps up the house advantage to over 7%.
Ooh, ouch. Northern Jim mentions that Aces Up at four card poker has a 3.9% house edge, and he was thinking that was the lowest outside of craps, but I don't even think craps has a low side bet house edge, does it?
No, side bets and craps like the all tall small and fire bet have very big house advantages, like 20%.
Yeah. So again, if you guys know the answer to the trivia question, please put that in the chat. We'll do another question while we're waiting. Otis says, I have seen some class 2 slots in Washington that are similar to Scarab using the 10 spin cycle, and the 10th spin does pay out more on average. Do you know how they do this with bingo cards?
The way I do class 2 slots with a multi-spin bonus round is if a certain pattern is achieved, then the player plays the bonus and there's going to be some predetermined win, and then it just shows the player anything that brings the player to that predetermined win. And the way they do that probably does have a big finale with a big win on the 10th spin. But that's about the best I can do with that one.
Okay. Shall we go to the trivia answers?
Yes.
Does it involve olives?
No.
Okay. And Otis says, is it unleavened bread, the best calf, and wine?
Only the unleavened bread is correct in that, also known as matzah. So I'm looking for 2 more things.
Okay, so if you guys know, put that in the chat. While we're waiting, Rodney says, I own Gambling 102 and I love it. Have there been any advantage plays or methods you've been told not to publish or elected to omit from your book?
Not really. A lot of people were not happy that I published how to beat certain slot machines in the 3rd version. However, to them, I say tough. I believe the world would be a better place if there were unfettered access to truthful information. And furthermore, the cat was kind of out of the bag anyway on that. So there was a little bit of resistance on that, but nevertheless, I published that information anyway. And I can assure you that there was no play that was like so good I couldn't write about it. So yeah, that's my answer to that one.
Okay. And then when people see you out in the wild, what is the thing they say to you the most? Do they have a question that they always ask? Like, what's your most commonly asked question?
The best game to play. And please don't ask it. I hate that question.
So what's the best game to play?
No, I told you not to ask me. It's like scratching a chalkboard.
I had to ask you.
I'm sure that's been asked in many previous live streams, but I'm not going to answer it today. It's probably been asked in about half of them.
Oh, man. Sorry, I got such a big kick out of that. I had to do that. Okay, so for the answer to your trivia question, is it locks?
Nope.
Okay. And nobody else has any answers. Should we go
Okay,
and
you guys are kind of disappointing me. But besides the matzah, there's also the meat from the lamb itself that they used to slaughter to get the blood, and bitter herbs to kind of remember their sorrow.
Okay.
So there you go. And
what is
by
our
the way,
next
today,
trivia?
in the place of the lamb, they will use like a chicken bone or something like that.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on. How long does Passover last?
So if you guys know the answer to that, put that in the chat. Our next gambling question comes from, let's see here. So it comes from Mike, who says, is there a full paid jacks or better in Atlantic City?
I frankly don't know. I would wager there is not, but a good website for that is vpfree2.com.
Okay. And then
Fiber
fiberoptics.
optic.
Oh, fiber. Yeah, that makes sense now. Generally speaking, do casinos permit patrons to add to their come bets or odds, or does it vary?
Yeah, I think you're allowed to, as long as you don't exceed the limit. Yeah, I think
Okay.
you're allowed to add and subtract from the odds, at any time.
Okay. And then Jean says, are there any new games in play in casinos that we should check out?
Not that I can think of. Angela's promoting a game called Match 52, which won the Best Game Award at the gaming show in last month. So I
You
don't
mean
know if it's
Knockout
actually in a
52?
casino yet, but I would keep an eye out for that.
You mean Knockout 52?
Yeah, they changed the name of it.
They had a game named Match 52, so that's probably where that came from. What did you think of it? Knockout 52.
Yeah, I like it. It's a smaller version of the old Match 52 that can be played on a blackjack sized table. And, I'm not predicting it's going to be an enormous success, but I think it's a fun game and slow way to lose your money. And yeah, so, I like the people involved with it. So I wish them well. And give the game a
Definitely.
try if you ever see it.
Sounds good. So for the answer to the trivia question, was it 8 days?
It was indeed. Some branches of Judaism only do 7, but 8 is the most common answer I've heard. Okay, let's move on here. What is the Hebrew word for Passover?
So if you guys know that, put that in the chat. Our next question is actually for me. Wow. Damien says, question for Heather. I got into trouble for not paying a bet that had won after a split in blackjack. Does it matter if you pay the winning bet if one hand loses and the other hand wins, making the hand push? Now, for people who don't know, I run a website and YouTube channel, vegas-aces.com, where I teach dealers how to deal casino games. And on blackjack, if you have a split and one hand wins and one hand loses, it's actually common for dealers to just pad it and move on. And the reason why a lot of dealers do this is because we have to keep up a certain number of hands per hour. We have to keep the pace of the game going. However, that's not good to do. You're not supposed to do that as a dealer. You are supposed to pay the winning bet and take the losing bet. And the reason why is for the eye in the sky and also for your floor supervisors who are watching the game. If you just pat the table and move on, this can be sort of confusing for them. So that is why they want you to actually pay the winning bet and take the losing bet. It does take a little more time, but that is technically the way you are supposed to do it.
Now, one thing I think I've seen is if the first bet loses and they take it and they put it in the tray, and then they take out those exact same chips from the tray to pay the winner. So why bother even moving it to the tray and back? Why can't they just kind of like slide over the losing chips to the winning chips?
So if you take the losing chips and then pay the winning chips, this is called paying with dirty money. And you're
Mhm.
never supposed to pay with dirty money. That is the absolute do not do faux pas type of a thing. If you put those chips in the bank, that money is now clean money and you're supposed to pay with clean money. And that is why they do that.
Okay, that's interesting. I did not know that.
Yep.
So just putting the chips in the tray makes the money suddenly clean.
Right. However, there is a problem with that. They don't want you to go into your bank more than you have to, and this is going into your bank more than you have to. So it's a catch-22 in that regard.
Hmm. Okay, pretty good answer to that
Okay.
one.
Thank you. Um, do you want to do the answer to the trivia question or one more question?
Um, let's do one more question.
Okay. So Mr. K says, I know you are against hedging, but what about laying a 4 or 10 just on the come out roll and then taking it down when the point is established? Thank you so much for all of your years of great math.
You're welcome. Thanks for the compliment. And I would say that, um, laying the 4 or the 10. I forgot what the house advantage is on that bet, to be honest with you. It would kind of depend um, what the house advantage was making that lay bet. But again, in general, I don't like hedging. So, um, yeah, so, I think the house advantage on that is kind of low. So, I'm not going to wave my finger of shame if you do that, but I still don't approve of it.
Okay. Okay. Answer to the trivia question.
Yes.
Is it from twilight the night before to twilight again?
It does go from a sunset to a sunset. So that part is accurate. However, I was looking for, I think, didn't we already cover the length of Passover?
8 days.
Right. And what was the last question then? Oh, no, the Hebrew word for Passover. That's what I'm looking for right now.
Oh, in that case, we do not have an answer to that.
Okay. So the answer to that is Pesach. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. So let's move on. For a traditional Passover Seder today, or shall we say in the modern times, an empty chair is set aside for whom?
Okay, so if you guys know the answer to that, put that in the chat. So during the dinner, they have to keep a chair empty.
Yep.
What happens if someone sits in it?
Oh, that would probably be very, that would be a huge breach of etiquette. And, I don't know exactly what would happen, but everyone would probably just be aghast. Don't invite me to Passover because I might sit in that chair.
Right, I was just thinking the same thing. Okay, so our next question comes from a Major Dow. Curious, which video poker games do you play, if any, currently?
I don't play any currently. I just don't perceive any good plays out there. So, yeah, frankly, I haven't played video poker in a long time.
And isn't it, I mean, it's your job, isn't it kind of like doing your job for fun?
If I perceived a good play out there, like good mail, I would go out and play. And to be honest, I'm kind of tempted to play at the Rampart. I think I can at least break even there in the mail, not to mention other comps on top of it. However, I am in a tax situation where if I get a jackpot, I'm going to have to pay taxes on it. I don't itemize anymore. So the taxation on jackpots really takes any incentive to play video poker away from me. So that's another big reason I don't play.
That makes sense. If you guys have any questions for Mike, please put it in the chat. Our next question comes from Tito, who says, on the come out, I try to throw horn numbers. I wheel the horn high as opposed to a $20 horn bet. Pays the same, but on the next throw, I have $20 in the high horn bets and not just one $5 horn.
I'm not sure what the question is, but the horn bet is a terrible bet. And I recommend you not bet anything on it. And that's what I have to say about that one.
That makes it an easy question then.
Yep.
One more question is from Otis. Are you interested in raw slot data? I have quite a bit of per session data on Captain Rich's and Lucky Larry's 4. And if so, what email do I send it to?
I don't think I'm interested in the data. I'm always interested in learning about slot machines that can be vultured that I don't already write about. And if that data would help me with that, I would be interested in the information. And I don't want to say the email address on the show, but if you send a message through Wizard of Odds under Contact Us, it will get to me.
Cool. Okay, answer to trivia.
Yep.
Was it Elijah?
Yes, it is indeed. You set a chair for Elijah. I believe you're supposed to give him a glass of wine too, but no food.
Okay.
Hey, what does the final day of Passover celebrate?
Okay, so if you know, put it in the chat. Our next question, while we're waiting for the answer, is from Fiber Optics, who says, do you have any plans to update your Wizard of Odds craps game to include more robust features such as roll counts, number of rolled sequence, etc.?
Nope. Sorry, but we have no plans to update that.
Quick answer.
Yep.
Next is from David, who says, hi, Michael. Is tax paid on baccarat table winnings like poker machines are in Vegas? Vegas.
No, I could talk about taxation of gambling for a long time, but in baccarat, winnings, shall we say, are not subject to a W2G form. In table games, I believe the rule is that the win must be 600 or more and pay odds at 300 to 1 or more. That's why sometimes you see wins of 299 on pay tables. So yeah, so if you say bet $1 million and won in baccarat on the bank or player, there would be no official paperwork. You are still required to pay taxes on any gambling winnings, no matter how it's from. But again, the casino is not going to give you a W2G form for table game winnings as long as, again, those conditions that I just said were not met.
Okay. Our next one is from Northern Jim. Are you planning to bet on the Mike Tyson versus Logan Paul fight? And any advice on this kind of event? Currently, Paul is ahead in betting lines, which surprises me.
Yeah, the answer is no. I wasn't planning to bet on that. I've kind of thought about it a little bit, but I haven't done enough research on it. So yeah, short answer is no. I have no plans to bet on it and have no advice about it.
Okay. Let's see. So if you guys have an answer to the trivia question, go ahead and put that answer into the chat. Our next question comes from Rodney, who says, question for both of you. You are comped a free dinner at a big fancy casino. What type of cuisine are you choosing?
I probably would choose whatever the steakhouse is, but seafood is also a good choice. So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay. My answer is anything that is gluten-free. So that's hard to find. It really sucks. But I have celiac disease, so I don't have much of a choice in the matter. And I believe there was a Gordon Ramsay restaurant that was so expensive, but they had gluten-free dishes, gluten-free meals, and it was so good. I remember eating that, and it was just so, so good.
Yeah, fair warning, when you eat with Heather, she grills the waiter to death.
I do.
And has been known to say, my life is in your hands.
I do. I have.
It really makes the whole staff very nervous.
And I think the people at the table too, because they're like, come on now, seriously.
Yes, she really does a full inquisition of all the ingredients of everything.
Yeah, I'm annoying. I admit it. Okay, so we are still waiting for people to put an answer to the trivia question. Do you want to read the trivia question one more time?
Yes, what does the last day of Passover celebrate? So as we
Okay.
learned before, it's 8 days long, and I think each day commemorates a different thing. So what does the last day commemorate?
So we will do one more question. This is from Wolf, who says, "Is there a game with more superstition than baccarat?"
Hmm. I tend to think not. Baccarat is really, really superstitious. So yeah, my answer there is no.
I would say craps.
Yeah, that's you could make a good case there. Yeah, craps players are really superstitious too. I
Don't
still
say
go
seven
with
at the
baccarat,
table.
but it's close.
Yeah. No, if you go to a craps table and you say seven, people are going to be mad.
Yep,
If you put your hand in the table when they're throwing the dice and they hit it, now all of a sudden you've ruined everything.
yep,
Um, yeah, if you're a don't player, that's people are superstitious about don't players playing on the table.
yep.
Yeah,
Those are all good points. However, I think that probably a good at least 25% of craps players are not superstitious, and but I think that probably 95% of baccarat players are superstitious.
that's a good point. Yeah. Okay, so we have two potential answers to the trivia questions.
Okay,
Did they celebrate leaving Egypt?
I'll accept that. What does the
Okay.
other answer say?
I'm not sure exactly if it's an answer. Is it Jack Paul? They celebrate Jack Paul.
I don't even know who
Jake
that
Paul.
is, but no, it's supposed to commemorate their arrival to the Red Sea, which
Ah,
God conveniently parted for them. And then after they got to the other side, he closed it in on the Egyptian army that was following them.
and fiber optics mentioned parting the Red
There we
Sea.
go. That's a better answer. So there we go. The parting or the arrival at the Red Sea.
Woo! Awesome. Do we have another trivia question?
Let's see. What? This will be the last question. What is traditionally said at the end of the Passover Seder?
Okay, so if you guys know the answer to that, put that in the chat. Our next question comes from Otis, who says Bob Dancer recommends against card pulling on loss rebates via Ultimate X video poker. He wrote an article stating that it might be fraud. Do you agree with this?
I do agree with it. Not so much because it's fraud, but because I think that the casinos, the systems now set off a red flag every time the player pulls a card out mid hand, and um, it's not going to look good if you have a bunch of red flags for card pulling, and it's going to just label you as an advantage player. So yeah, I would not do it for that reason. As far as it being fraud, I could see the casinos viewing it that way, but if I don't have a moral problem with it, but I do have a practical problem with it. Is yeah. So that is my answer to that one.
Okay, sounds good. So the answer to the trivia question, David says, is it shalom?
No.
And Rodney says, see you next year in Jerusalem.
Yes, that is right.
Woo.
Next year in Jerusalem. That's exactly right. Hope there was no searching involved there, Rodney. Um, yeah. So yeah, absolutely correct. That will do it for my Passover trivia. By the way, Passover starts on this Monday and goes through April 30th. It starts and ends at sundown. So yeah, there you go.
Are you going to be celebrating it?
Nope.
Okay.
I am not Jewish. I am 3.4% Ashkenazi Jewish by race, but I don't, not religious in any way.
Okay. We have 4 more minutes left. Do you want to do one more question?
Okay.
Okay. So Northern Jack says at
Jim.
Jack's or Northern Jim, I'm sorry. Northern Jim says at Jack's or better, given 3 unsuited non-sequential royals, you once suggested to keep the lowest 2 and it works well, but I don't understand why. Is there a reason?
Because you have a better chance of forming a straight. So think about it. If you have an unsuited Jack and Queen, you can have a straight anywhere starting from the 8. Um, let's see. So if you start, you have a Jack and a Queen, then you can have an 8, 9, 10 Jack Queen straight. You can have 9, 10 Jack Queen King. You can have 10 Jack Queen King. Yeah, basically, there's more ways to form a straight around 2 low cards. Whereas if you have, say, a king and an ace, the only way you can get a straight is if the other 3 cards are 10 Jack and Queen.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, let's let that be the last question.
Okay. And when is the next time we're going to do this?
So I see that the previous live stream, we scheduled the next one for May 9th.
Fantastic. So if you guys have any questions, join us May 9th to get your questions answered.
Mhm.
And do you have anything fun planned between now and then?
Let's see.
Love the calendar, by
I
the
do
way.
have some just day hikes, but nothing overnight planned. I might do a short kayak trip, but that I'm still trying to work out the details of that.
And a short kayak trip to you would be 10 miles?
Oh, that would be really short. By short, I mean 2 or 3 days, and I prefer to go about 15 to 20 miles a day.
Wow, that's incredible. Absolutely incredible. There are 20-year-olds that couldn't do what you do, I swear.
They should get out there and exercise more.
Well, Mike, it was great to see you. Great
Yep.
doing this.
Yep. Thank you, Heather, for producing the show, and thanks again, audience, as always. And I also want to shout out to Gilmer. I don't know if he's here today, but he always summarizes these shows for the benefit of the video description. So I always appreciate that.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. And
Okay.
I'll see you
We'll see you guys
again.
on May 9th.
Sounds good. Have a
Okay.
good one. Bye.